Welcome to the Backlash at backlash.com. My name is Rod Van Mecklin, and in this video, I'm going to read from my 1992 article, Comparable Worth. During the 23 years since I published this updated chapter from my first book, hundreds of articles and videos have repeated what I'm about to read, but this was one of the very first. In addition to what I wrote here, elsewhere I also noted that the drop in wages following the influx of women into the labor market had nothing to do with sexism. Prices in a free market are set simply by supply and demand, and when the supply of labor increased faster than demand, the price of labor, wages, dropped. Here, now, comparable worth. Quoting from Andrea Dworkin in her book Intercourse, we are poorer than men in money, and so we have to barter sex or sell it outright, which is why they keep us poorer in money. Typical feminist attitude. 1992, Bellevue, Washington, actual statistics expose little sexism. One of the most common feminist objections is that working women make only 73 cents for every dollar men make. Were this strictly true, their charges of sexist oppression would be understandable, but while the averages do work out that way, according to the Statistical Abstract of the United States in 1991, sexism has almost nothing to do with it. Marital status, personal priorities, hours worked per week, term of employment, number of jobs held, years of education, and many other factors are involved. Generally, full-time workers are paid a higher wage than part-time employees, regardless of sex, and more women than men opt for part-time jobs. Remember, this was 1991. In 1989, for example, almost 44 million men aged 25 to 54, or roughly 68% of the male workforce, were working full-time as opposed to less than 30 million women, or about 56% of the female workforce in the same age group. Additionally, more men than women work more than one job, and of them, men usually work more hours. Among multiple job holders working 50-plus hours per week, men outnumber women in every age group. Let's see. Men also average significantly more overtime than women, from a low of 2.1 hours more overtime in the age 20 to 24 group to a high of 4 hours more overtime in the ages 25 to 44 group. That was from Employment and Earnings, U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Volume 38, Number 12, December 1991, Table A30, page 40. Such disparities could easily account for most of the gender wage gap, but there are more contributing factors. As members of the labor force, women have less seniority than men. Again, remember, this was 1991. 52% of women, compared with 33% of men, have worked less than 5 years at the job they held longest, and women choose to devote less of their time to their careers than men do. Quote, by the age of 64, women are away from their work an average of 14.7 years. Men are away an average of 1.6 years. That was Daniel E. Van Weiss, page 92. The book was The Great Divide. Another study found that, quote, the typical woman drops out of the labor force for 9 years. That was Sylvia Ann Hewlett in her book A Lesser Life, The Myth of Women's Liberation in America. Most women choose to sub-maximize their earnings potential in the compensated labor force. This, more than anything else, explains why women earn only 73 cents on the male dollar. They earn less by choice. Female choices. To study the kinds of choices college-educated women make, Dorothy C. Holland and Margaret A. Eisenhart followed the academic and career progress of 23 women from 1979 through 1987. Despite that a study of just 23 women does not provide a sufficient basis for making grand generalizations, a practice feminists readily indulge whenever it suits their purposes, what they observed is telling. Quote, although these women students, both black and white, talked about the importance of a career to them, they also gradually redefined what a career was. For most of them, it became a secondary pursuit, a way of supporting oneself that would not interfere with the more significant pursuit of a suitable marriage partner. And years later, Most were in marginal jobs, replicating the gender division of labor in their career choices. That was from Science, volume 252, 17 May 1991, Mira Marx Ferree, page 989 and 990. That was a review of Educated in Romance, Women, Achievement, and College Culture by Dorothy C. Holland and Margaret A. Eisenhart. So they stalled their careers by choice. But what about women who are really intent on latching onto the brass ring? At what point do they feel victimized? Quote, the trouble begins at about the $75,000 to $100,000 salary level and seems to get worse the higher one looks. That was Tara Roth Madden in her book, Women versus Women, The Uncivil Business War. Now, today, $75,000 to $100,000 might not sound that much, but you have to adjust for inflation. And if you were to adjust say $100,000 back to 90, or about 1990, it would come out to what? Oh goodness, closer to $50,000, $60,000 a year. So what we're talking about here would be closer to $200,000 a year, that level. And you know what? Millions of hard-working men and women would dearly love to have trouble like that. Most college-educated men will never know what it's like to have this kind of problem because most will never make that kind of money. Feminist complaints have little to do with the real world, but that doesn't lessen the impact of their angry rhetoric. A man making $10 an hour or a salary of $35,000 a year may not know it's the few vastly successful men who skew the income averages, but he knows that when his female coworkers, who make as much or more than he does, complain, their complaints ring false. Again, quoting from Tara Roth Madden in Women versus Women, the constant movement of hordes of working women pretending to act in unison goes no deeper than any other facade and has no more substance. It's all show. To gain parity, women need to work as productively, I can say that word, for as many hours and years as men do. And of course, by now, 2015, lots of them do and have. Slogans about women being able to do twice the work in half the time do not replace results. Feminists know this. But rather than ask women to measure up to the same high standard to which many men aspire, their solution to inequality is to lower standards. Quote, the answer is not to move women out of their star jobs, but to redefine our expectations for everyone. That was from the now defunct Savvy magazine, June 1989, page 40 by Ellie McGarth. Is this what women really want? Do they really want to get the brass ring by lowering the standards, or do they want to earn their own way and take pride in their accomplishments? These are the questions men must pose and women must answer. So in 1998, then I came back with the following. Since writing this essay, many other arguments and factors have emerged. For example, in Statistics Canada, they recently reported that women in Canada average higher earnings than men. Do we hear the so-called pro-equality feminists there protesting this discriminates against men? No! Why not? Revenge? Tit for tat? Sexism? Or is it just because, quote, men have all the power, close quote, so it's okay for them to make less? Yeah, right. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the other videos. For Backlash at backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mecklin.